I don't want to sound too much like a chauvinist, but when I come home and dinner's not ready, I go through the roof.
A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
She ate like a pig.
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
She's really a beautiful baby. She's got marvelous legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell.
To this day, it shocks me that this man not only gets votes, but gets votes from women, specifically. Per the data, white women. They willingly push all this aside, all the allegations, all the ties to a certain financier, and even the E. Jean Carroll verdict. And for what? Meanwhile,
there's nothing fun about his rhetoric. There's nothing fun about the way he demeans citizens of this country. Nothing fun about the way he talks down to women. And in my experience, real men respect strong women. They don't live in fear of them.
he's right, and he's been right. The way Donald Trump treats women, minorities, people that dissent, people that actually care about the country instead of themselves are diminished, demoralized, demeaned, and treated like the lesser, and they believe this portrays masculinity. The plot has never been more lost.
Donald Trump is deeply racist, and he says deeply racist things, okay? I want to make a distinction between Donald Trump, the person who says and does racist things, and the notion of a fascist. Because look, if we're just gonna use fascist toward anyone we dislike, all right, then the word doesn't actually mean anything.
Okay, what do you want me to say, Anna? You want me to say wannabe dictator?
Sure, you can say wannabe dictator, but I don't even think he wants to be a dictator.
Of course he does. That's what you do when you lose an election and you go, oh, I got fake electors and I'd like to terminate the Constitution and bring out the tanks and use martial law against American citizens and shoot protesters. I mean, if that's not fascist, then I guess the word just shouldn't exist.
But was he able to do those things?
While these two go at it on the definition of a word, Foley has some thoughts.
Well, you know, we throw around the F word, fascism, and you were wondering earlier if it's working. I don't think people understand the history of fascism. If you were to say, we're talking Mussolini, we're talking Hitler, then maybe, I understand. I mean, General John Kelly, he had the definition, you know, by heart. You know, he could recite it and said by the token of that definition, yes, he is a fascist. So you have guys like General Mattis, General Milley. These are men's men, right? General John Kelly, all speaking out and voicing their concern. This is unprecedented in history that a Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, will come on. I got to know Secretary of Defense William Cohen a little bit. And he's speaking out. So you have people who love their country from both sides of the aisle, a patriot like Liz Cheney, whose career was completely derailed because she dared to have the courage to speak up. And I think, I don't know. I see strength in compassion. I see courage and kindness. I don't see any of that. I don't see what's appealing about Donald Trump, except he's able to sell the American public on the idea that only he can solve their problems.
Facts and only facts. Foley left no crumbs here.
What they do is they have what's called a punch card approved by the general contractor. So the work was essentially approved, according to the gentleman who just spoke, Paul Friel. The work was approved, they went for the final payment, and were called into a meeting with Donald and Robert Trump, and we're told you're not going to be paid the final invoice of about $83,000, but you're welcome to come back and do future work for the Trump organization. The Friel Cabinetry Company tried to recoup the money. They hired a lawyer, but dropped any attempt to regain that money because of legal fees eventually. And after that, Paul Friel related that the company was unable to find work in Atlantic City from that point on.
Here's the NBC report out. Cities seek more than $750,000 in unpaid bills for Trump campaign events since 2016. At least 4 cities and a county are still waiting to be reimbursed for costs associated with local law enforcement and first responders during Trump visits.
Who'd have thunk it, right? I mean, you have the slickest con man out of New York City. After Roy Cohn had left the Senate, he went into private practice, and he set himself up basically as the House counsel to a couple of the crime bosses in New York City, the Genovese crime family and the Gambino crime family. And at the same time, he adopted a young developer from Queens looking to make his first mark as a developer in Manhattan named Donald J. Trump. And Donald J. Trump will tell you to this day that he learned how to play politics and he learned how to play development from Roy Cohn while he was sitting in Roy Cohn's East Side townhouse next to Fat Tony Salerno and Big Paul Castellano.
And in terms of Trump's forays first into Atlantic City and then some of the construction industry jobs he took on to build his towers in New York?
He put so many good contractors out of business.
I don't care if he's Donald Trump or Donald Duck. Right is right, wrong is wrong, and I have to stand up for myself.
Donald Trump had basically decided what subcontractors would work in Atlantic City and which ones would not.
They are the voices skeptical of Donald Trump and his promises of prosperity.
If you went against him, he simply put a list out and said these are bad guys and everybody else is a good guy.
And you guys were on that list?
We were on the list.
And did you ever get work in Atlantic City again?
Never.
In making way for Trump Tower, and that is his signature accomplishment. It's his high-rise condo palace right in the corner of 57th Street and 5th Avenue. And to do that, he had to knock down a building that was a former famous New York City department store called Bonwit Teller. And he was in such a rush to do it, he got himself a contractor who had a union signatory to a union contract, but in fact was using all undocumented workers from Poland, hardly paying them at all. They were getting so little money that they were literally sleeping on the job site. And he, of course, made none of the donations to the union benefit fund, which he was supposed to do. So this rank and file member filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump for the fact that he had cheated his union out of these benefits. And Trump ended up settling, even though he completely claimed throughout the debates, I never settled lawsuits. He settled that one out of court.
Story after story, we hear from those who were cons speak out to tell us of the danger this man poses, and now he is not for the everyday hardworking American, but for himself to save a buck.
I think one thing that most of his followers don't understand is the long history he's had of I'm trying to think of a way not to say screwing over his workers, but I think that's the most basic and honest way. He's got a long history of not paying his contractors and his workers. And so I find it the height of hypocrisy to say you're for the working man when your history shows that you are only for yourself. I don't understand the mystery. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, so I was used to him. My friends and I saw him as like kind of a harmless con man, but he's not harmless anymore. He's a very dangerous con man, and I'm going to quote General Mark Milley when I say he is the greatest danger to our country.
Foley, like many, are tired of it. He'd also say this, which is very important to hear.
I also want to point out that the reason I spoke up is because it took some doing to get me on here, Laura, because I don't particularly want people to dislike me. And I know that when you speak up against somebody who's very powerful and has very strong and loyal following, that you're going to get some negative blowback. But I also realized that I did not want to wake up on the day after the election to find out that a swing state had been lost by a couple hundred votes and to know that I could have made the difference. So to me, the two dirtiest words in the English language are what if, and I don't want to be that guy. So I spoke out 4 years ago. I'm doing it now.
Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to TYT.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.